Welcome, gentlemen. We'll start with one of the biggest factors in the elections of 2024. In fact, it's been the big factor in the last 10 years, but now we're looking at it more closely than we have in the past. Women are finally at the center of elections, and we believe that they could be the swing factor in the 2024 elections. The rise of the women factor is one of the most important developments in India's elections. In the 2019 Lok Sabha elections, for the first time, more women voted than men. 67.1% versus just 67% of men. Marginally ahead, but a significant number. In 2024, the female turnout in West Bengal was the highest among all states, 83.3%, whereas it was just 81.6% of men. Now, in a country where men are more likely to vote as compared to women, we're going to look at how this trend has changed. Let's look at the turnout of women in the first 6 phases of the elections. There you have it, gentlemen. Very high turnouts, almost equal to, and in 2 cases, 2 phases, more than that of the men. Ajit Kumar Jha, you're a numbers guy. Tell us what you're making of these record numbers of women turning out to vote.
See, Sandeep, for the first time in the history of India, 1962, we got a disaggregation of male-female voters. Before that, we didn't have.
That's right. Women didn't even matter for a disaggregation.
That's right.
Right.
In 62, the gap, what we call the gender gap in turnout, was a high 16 to 17%.
Right.
Okay. It went up in 1984 when Rajiv Gandhi won with that massive majority.
Right.
That gap was reduced to 7 to 8%.
Right.
That's when I wrote this article, Women's Political Party, in the paper I was working for that. So since then, women voting has been going up.
Right.
In fact, in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and other states, there was a massive turnout of women, more than men, in the assembly polls, for example. So 2019 was the first national election, Lok Sabha election, where the women turnout touched and went higher than that of men.
Right.
Now, think of it.
Historic.
17% gap, and here the women are voting more.
Marginal. What's it going to be like in 2024?
So the growth in women empowerment or voting is much more than that of males, and that, I think, is the big sort of a story. Now, of that, it's BJP, which at one time used to seem to be a male-supported party, was called the patriarchal party, is now getting more votes from women than men.
Right.
And we noticed that in 2019, almost a 2% national average.
You have the numbers right here.
There you go. 44, 46.
The rise in the women voters for the BJP from 44% in 2014 to 46% in 2019.
No, in 2019 itself, the male voter...
it was more than, they outstripped the male voters in 2019.
By 2%. Whereas look at the others. It's less, the other way around, 29, 26. Right? So more males are voting others than...
So this is the big phenomenon here. And I'm going to bring in Karthikeya on this point. You know, Karthikeya, targeting women voters has been a state election level kind of thing. Jayalalitha has done it in Tamil Nadu. Nitish Kumar has done it in Bihar. But is the BJP the first national party to appeal to women from the center in terms of the schemes, Prime Minister Modi's messaging, whether it's the Ujjwala Yojana, it's Drone Didis more recently? Tell us how the BJP has targeted women voters for the last decade or so.
I think BJP has been more successful in showcasing the attempt.
Right.
Political parties have been targeting women as a voter. Now, if you look at Uttar Pradesh, I would say the successful example is of Mayawati.
Yes.
And you see, I was reading an article today on women voters, so the idea which people generally get is, if there is freebie, the women will vote for you, but that's not true. That's one thing. But when we talk about women voters, it also depends on the outlook of a political party, not the programs and policies. For example, in 2021, I was with Jayant Chaudhary, and I had gone out then to cover his rallies, which were promoting communal harmony. Then those rallies were called understanding rallies. And then I realized that very few women were there. No women. Only men were there. Muzaffarnagar, Shamli. And subsequently, when I went and attended a rare Mayawati rally, a lot of women were there.
Right.
A lot of women came out on their own. They were sitting. Even in Congress rallies, the front portions are being generally they are earmarked for women.
Right.
So it also depends on the political party. For example, you go to Haryana, you'll find a lot of men.
Right.
Women are herded in a corner, and that's about it. But in Mayawati's rally, you will find women freely moving around.
Yes.
Even men are ordered and women are ordered
Right.
in a way that it allows safe movement of women from the house to the rally ground and back to their houses. So that is one part why women are coming out in larger numbers. Larger numbers nationally.
Right.
Because at a level of state, as you said, that there were political parties who have been targeting them.
Yes.
Women as one
With
voter.
schemes and with freebies.
So
and,
this brings us to the question whether women are voting on self-aware issue of gender,
Yeah.
or they continue to vote on caste and religious line.
Right. Right.
Secondly, do women in a house vote differently from their men? I don't know whether any audit has been done on that.
Right.
That in the same house, a man has voted for a party
Yes.
and woman to another political party. So I think slightly complex, but one or two chief ministers have really made a difference to their career. For example, the cycle Yojana of Nitish
Yes.
and Ujjwala that was introduced by BJP government immensely benefited BJP in 2017.
Yes.
But at a national level, I think it's far more complex.
Right.
Women as beneficiaries, because
Right.
I don't think that women as a common gender entity has emerged in India. If that would have been the case, then our socially and culturally freer and more modern Northeast
Yes.
would have seen far more women legislators, far
and
more.
chief ministers even.
There have been assemblies
Right.
where there have been no women member.
Yes. Yeah,
No,
that's a
no.
paradox in the Northeast. But I want to bring in Anil Verma on this point. Dr. Verma, look at the high turnouts of women in the last 6 phases. Do you believe that this is a vote for change? You think women voters are actually going to swing the 2024 elections in either way?
Sandeep, I do not know whether it is a vote for change or not, but certainly it is a demonstration of the democratic balancing of our electoral process.
Right.
And this is one very important thing that we have to remember, that from where we have come, 1951 to
Yes. And 1962, in fact, yes. Right.
To this election, there are a couple of things which come to my mind actually. One is that education has made a tremendous difference.
Yes.
Earlier, women were not educated, and that sense of self-empowerment was not there, and
Right.
therefore they were very much, pushed out of whenever there was a movement out of the house. That
Yes.
is one thing.
Yes.
And because of this, education, they have now moved into the domain of public services. Like in most of the services, you find women very freely now going, because now they are educated. They have a claim on different, and they are very capable also.
Right.
If you have any knowledge of the organizations, we find that the women workers, women employees, they are very, very dedicated to their work. And many corporate groups are actually very much inclined to do this kind of gender balancing in their entire recruitment process.
Yes.
Because women are very dedicated, whether it is home or whether it is their workplace. So that's the reason that now they are moving out. And
Right.
that moving out beyond the 4 walls of their domestic, things,
Yes.
that has given them a sense of empowerment that
Right.
they must go to the booth and vote.
Sense of
Besides
empowerment,
many other
mobility,
things.
women,
Yeah.
the mobility that women enjoy, the greater mobility that they enjoy, that's now translating, as Dr. Verma mentioned, into increased turnouts and increased voting. But Ajit Jha, this point of women almost equaling the men in terms of turnout, and possibly 2024 they could even increase their numbers as compared to 2019. Do you think this is going to make a major impact in
No,
these
it's a
elections?
major impact. If you run the last graphics once
Yes, can
more,
we have those graphics?
I'll just show it to you.
On the turnouts, yes.
Look at the 5th and the 6th phase.
Yes.
Look at the difference between men and women.
Right.
In the 5th
2%,
phase,
yes.
1.5% increase.
Yes.
In the 6th phase, 3% increase.
Right.
Over the first 4 phases.
Yes.
So you can see, and think of it, this is a national average.
Right.
When you do a national average, Sandeep, what tends to happen is if some states are very high,
Right.
then that comes down because you get an average.
Yes.
Right. So that is a very high gender gap on a national average.
Right.
2019, 2%. Sixth phase, we see 3%. Number one.
Yes.
Number two, if you look at the assembly elections that were recently conducted,
Right.
Madhya Pradesh had a gender gap of 6%
Yes.
for the BJP. That
Right.
means in favor of the BJP.
Right.
Women, 6% more women voted compared to men.
Yes.
If you look at UP last assembly election,
Right.
again, 3% more women voted for men. You know, this typical yogis program of Gundai Band Karo.
Yes.
That, used to affect women a lot outside
Right.
colleges. All these gundas would be standing. So all these anti-gunda activities brought in a lot of women voters.
Right.
So I think it's a very important change. And then finally, let me point out that one of the scholars who has worked on this area,
Yes.
Rita Verma Williams, based in Ohio, Cincinnati,
Right.
she has written a whole book on it.
Yes.
And her argument is that why the BJP has succeeded,
Right.
whereas the other political parties have failed in getting more women voters,
Yes.
is because the BJP is a conservative party.
Yes.
It did not destroy the family structure.
Yes, yes.
The BJP activists, women activists were sent to the
Right.
doors of these families, and they said, look, the men can't enter the household.
Yes.
They stop outside the door, whereas we go inside.
Right.
So all these sort of women Panna Pramukhs would go
Right.
and ask the women to come and vote.
Right.
And then she points out that this whole notion of using religion as a public space,
Right.
as political space, that brought in a lot of women because women
That's
go into
right.
mandirs,
Absolutely.
women do puja at
So
home.
that's
so
where
the
the
BJP
BJP
tried this conservative,
worked in that,
which
yes.
is counterintuitive to
Right.
radical feminism or
Right.
liberal feminism, right?
Absolutely.
So this I think is an extraordinary.
And there are studies
change.
which actually suggest, Ajit, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are studies which say that early on, women tended to vote the way the family kind of, voted. But of late, there's been a divergence, and the number of women who've, if it was in the 80% and the higher 80% that they would vote with the family, that number's been steadily decreasing over the last couple of years. It's the last numbers were for 60% or something of them. Women would say that they would vote with what the men folk told them. So the chupa voter is now coming out.
I would say that instead of women voting differently from the family,
Yeah.
my understanding is that women, because of education, a sort of awareness of
Yes.
rights, and also change in the attitude of men.
Yes.
I mean to say, we have to understand that two makes a pair,
Yeah.
and also because of the change which has been brought.
Yes.
In the way the boys are being, giving education by
Right.
their families, and be sensitizing them about male gaze,
Right.
how to respect women,
Yes.
how to look at them, the false notions created through culture or imbibed values, not imported values. I would say imbibed values. I think women in your household are also able to now influence a larger worldview.
Yes.
First, it was the father who was influencing
Absolutely.
the larger worldview.
Yes.
A woman in the house was maybe influencing your food habit,
Right.
or religious ethics,
Yes.
or social ethics. But I think she's also influencing your larger political value.
Absolutely.
I think that's where the change
That's
has,
where the change is. In
That's
fact,
where the change
and
is.
we'll know exactly 4 days from now whether the women voters will swing 2024. That's all we have time for in this segment. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Anil Verma, Karthikeya and Ajit Kumar Jha. Continue to join me on the next segment where we're going to be talking about Punjab, Haryana and Himachal Pradesh.